and a well-deserved cup of coffee. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome to the Wessex dungeon. Right, what I thought I'd do is show you where I was and how it is all slightly better now. So thanks for joining me. Wessex. All this floor space. So, maybe let's start in this corner. This is my Axminster, so 900 watt buffer grinder that would use to finish blades, put polishes on things. Behind this was two machines, just because there was nowhere else for them to go. They are now, living under there. So they're my Clarks. So little 4x36 and the classic 1x30 were here, covered in dust and whatever. So that is now cleared, wiped down, hoovered, whatever, coat of paint. Much brighter. The Rob Phillips RDP blade vise now can live there quite happily, and then once needed he can go there-ish and used for hand finishing. The Wessex blades motif from lovely maker is there. Sean still here, always lives in that corner. Now I can actually see it. Here has been cleared, painted, even underneath to get a bit more light. Grinder, same position, but obviously just cleaned off a bit. Flipped over so I can paint underneath. Front has been painted. As I work around the 8 gang, it's been rationalised. There's a few things in there that, with the bird's nest underneath, are now sorted out. One light, silly thin wires they had on it, they're starting to short out, so I've got rid of that. Moved a better 4 gang across to the other side with some cable clips. My 12-inch now can fit in with some holes. There's another station in there I could put something in if I had to. Maybe a little 4-inch wheel could live there. But the whole point of this move was, when I'm on the grinder and I'm about here with the work rest, if I was here going that way, I'd be hitting this, because this was about there. So I'm up against the grinder. So now that's over 6 to 8 inches, and even then I could bump it over another couple of inches as well, even if it wasn't central to the table. So I got a lot more room here to here. This was the point of the move. Yeah, but as with all things, one task leads to another, and there's no point going half measures every now and again. So in this far corner there were, as a big heavy vise was in this corner, and a few other bits and bobs. The vise that was there used to live here. That's what I used to glue handles on with, but now of course I use G-clamps. I don't need a big engineering vise taking up bench space, when a very handy bench drill could, be in the position that it was. So I keep the bench drill, coat of paint, because it's hand-me-down, so I'm not too worried about the appearance of it. And the big old bench vise is now over here, and there's a reason for that I'll get to in a minute. I'll work the way around. So there's the big bench vise, there's a little medium bench vise, and an inky-dinky one on the block that can go into here. Come back to that later. But the vise that was in this corner, I've now got over there. Moving into this corner, this was a bit of a glory hole, but now what I've done is I've rationalised all the timber board that I've used. Now I'm putting in this corner, because this corner surprise, surprise, is dry. I don't have a leak here, but I have a leak there-ish, which usually lands sort of here. That's dry. So all the offcuts of wood, oak, pine, most of it was stair carcass sides and whatever, is now just fitting in there with an extract fan and stuff underneath out of the way, ducting out of the way, just so I now have a space for the workshop extractor that I'm using at the moment with the cyclonic bin. So if you haven't seen one of these before, i.e. the cyclonic, it's a bit like a Dyson. It spins round and the crap ends up in the bin, and only maybe 5-10% ends up in the vacuum cleaner. You also end up with more flex room, so you're using the vacuum, sucking the dirt up. The dirt goes into the thing and ends up with a swirl. Most of the dust ends up in the bottom, and then the rest goes into the vacuum cleaner, and then the bag stops even most of it coming out, so you get very little dust actually coming out of the machine. So that now is extraction. This space is now clear because there was a huge green box which is now under there. You can see the green box handles that live there. So to get the door open, I'd have to step over. Yeah, so that now is, I got a way in and out. The saw table that saw arrived on, sort of like a pyramidal sheet bended steel crap thing. It was pretty stable, but it was a big old glory hole underneath that I couldn't use because you had stays like that and you couldn't get anything underneath. This big beastie stander that lived on a big green box, if you go back to this point, this is my surface grinder for big flat blades, because most of my blades are like camp knives and up, lecus and whatever. Not everything fits on a 2-inch belt. So that thing I use for surface grinding, just to clean up the thing as best as I can and to get it murder flat. That now lives on its own dolly underneath this saw, which, out the way, on casters, gives me that extra few inches to the grinder. Right, while I was at it, the shelves that the planer thicknesser stood on, it straddled the width of the shelf, so the bung feet, that was the edge of the shelf to the other side. Now it actually sits on a nice plinth, and you see I'll give myself plenty of room. So that, again on casters if I ever had to get it out. The big green box, we go back to there, I got an old bakery dolly. You know what bread trays would go on? Really old one I had years and years back with a bit of chipboard in. I used for a bass amp dolly. So I drilled it for lightness with a big old Forstner bit because it was ever so heavy, and that box just fit on it. But can you see those two little handles on the side, those little bits there? Those prevented it from going underneath the shelf unit. Literally a 5mm spigot stuck out was too much. So I made sure that when I built these legs, which is bunk slats, when I ripped these two down in half, I'd have the shortest span at the front and back, with the width, full width of the slat on the sides, so I'd have enough room to get not just the box but the blinking bits of metal that stuck out the side. Yeah, there they are. So those two little bits stuck out, that prevented this box ever going underneath the shelf unit. So made to fit. And say the dolly, bakery dolly, is the box on. So that's on wheels, that's on wheels, that's on wheels, and that's on wheels. So getting out and cleaning, I could clear this entire corner if I had to, or rearrange something. And the beauty of the saw is when I get an awkward size, I could open the door and get stuff out, or I could just move it into the centre, cut, and then mooch it out the way again. Nice. Keep the bits on there for now. So fence and the push square mitre fence thing. I haven't really done much in here other than clean it, and I've rationalised a load of, you know, the sort of plastic boxes that all drill bits come in. I've gone through a load of them and just put them in blocks and saved myself a load of space. So I've kept a few of them like this, but when there's like, you know, loads of volume lost with these sort of boxes, I've gone through every now and again. I thought, you know what, I'll put that in a block and save myself a load of space. So a bit of a tidy up there, but nothing actually done to this section. I just left it for now. Probably the biggest difference, these shelves here, these two metal shelving units that I've got across the window for security, so you can't get in here. Alarm somewhere else, I'm making sure I don't show it. This shelf unit was MDF, which still is actually. So obviously dull and no light. So what I've done is I've cleared the stuff that was up in there, cleaned it up, and sort of built this while I'm at it. So jigs, V-blocks, carbide, grinding guide, the carbide scribe from Mike Palmer, and the V-blocks, got one from Breckfa, and I got two now from China. So I got all sorts of possibilities. I got a big 90-degree block, and some other bits of angle iron, bits and bobs. Basically sorted out. I pulled the scroll saw out, cleaned it up, made a bit of space, and I got white spirit in there just because it bounces light off and there's somewhere for it to live, rather than a sort of obscuring thing. Actually the light passes through it, so I left the white spirit there. And moving on to the funky drill. Not much wrong with the place it was in, but all that space was lost, so I built sort of a plinthy stand. So I've got a mini swage block I got from Jason from Willowwood. That now lives there quite happily. The tow bar anvil head now lives in there with the blocks, sorry, the different wheels I got from the radius idlers. And as I say, I've gone through a load of drill blocks and just saved as much space as I can. Just getting all the drills in one place, and it shouldn't get too dirty. All I've got to do is put this cloth here across the top of there, and that'll catch most of the swarf and dust rather than them all get filled up. My sober 3-way 90-degree vice can just fit there, and yeah, damn sight better. Moving on the other side, cleared, a lot more light coming through the window. It's basically because I was in a rock band, I soundproofed the place out, so this was big heavy plastic sheeting and bubble wrap, attenuated down, so I could have band practice in my garage. So that now is all gone off of there. The 5 layers of carpet I had everywhere is all gone, and that was just for the final corner now. This had carpet on it, so this has all come out, wiped down, demoulded, as in mould, coat of paint, and all the wood that was in this corner with the leak that's there is now over there in the dry corner. So I'm not going to can't store wood in this corner anymore. And things that would be hanging on there I got to put somewhere else. Just for the time being, I got saws out of the way, a few of them Kellens just out of the way there, but I got to have somewhere for me blades rather than hung on the door. Right, now this Loki grinder, the reason for all the vices on there is because when I tension the belt up and I pull on it, like the platen, to tension the belt, I lift the whole bench, because the bench is not bolted to the floor or bolted to the wall. So vice, 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 railroad and anvil is literally so I can tension the belt up without flipping the table and teetering it over. It's a mini Lurvad, so I've still got the side vice. The end vice is over there out of the way, which I can't actually use at the moment. But what I've managed to do is this, again, I had this stuck out to about there. So I was belly on the front of theirs, and traps and shoulders are rubbing on belts. So there was not enough room in this corner. This now is back a good 6 inches, 150mm in new money. A front leg, because the Lurvad was ridiculously unstable. It's all got to be perched on things to make it sort of more stable. But all that metalwork has got that planted now. The propane tank, which was over in this corner, is now here. So when I got to do differential heat treats, a load of belts that were literally stopping light coming in are now down in this corner, and a couple of toolboxes again that were just in funny places is now under there. So tin of paint, I've got something to catch most of the drips, and that kind of white paint there that I bought this week. So damn sight better. There's still all this I haven't sort of like got to, but the main work areas is a lot better, and it is now, I think, sort of 6-7 days of it I've had, and I need to crack on and get on with some other tidying up in the other thing, because you imagine as I'm heaving stuff out to make room, I'm lifting this machine up and that machine and putting it over there and over here, and you end up moving each machine about 10 times as you're trying to build things in funny corners. So to try and make as much space as possible, I've now filled up that garage. So that needs to be sorted out over the next day, so I can crack on with something else. Oh yeah, that's the one that I wasn't too happy about. What I might try and do is hot melt glue gun whilst they're apart, but it does actually occasionally short, so I should be able to hot melt glue gun that. But a lot better, a lot more natural light coming in. Got rid of a load of dust that was in awkward corners. It was difficult to clean. Better access to this grinder for sure. I would actually have to shimmy to get through past the saw to get to that one, and I'd be leaning over. I'm actually able to stand at this bench drill. Far better light on the buffer machine. This corner, far better. This was just 2 machines stacked up and all sorts of stuff. It was just completely filled up. I can see Sean's sign now, which you know, makes me remember who I am and what I'm here for. Door access, whereas before it was literally climbing over a big green box. Saw on a dolly that I can move. The sander I use very occasionally for the big stuff, for surface grinding. That's out of the way, not in the way, and it's the heaviest thing in here. So it's just a monster great load of cast iron. He's on the floor on a dolly, and that's the end of it. Locking wheels at the front. So I already need to use that, and what I do is just wheel it back out of the way. Planer, all I got to do is hoof the saw over there, and I can get right up against it. You've seen me using it, and I'm like leant over at a 90-degree angle. It was quite awkward. I've now stuffed the spigot for extraction, so that'll be cleaner over in there as well. Cleaned up a bit, few forced a bit, saved a bit of room. Far better top shelf, far better shelf, and a bit more room on Loki, because I've cut the top down, access the front vice, and the space under there, and brighter everywhere. Thanks for joining me again, Scott Wessex Blades. Thanks for your patience, and still a bit to do next door, but surely agree, the damn sight better than it used to be.